Welcome to Ping 24 Updates, your daily dose of what's happening around the world. Subscribe my channel and press the bell icon for more updates. Breaking news: dangerous escalation in the West Philippine Sea. Tensions have reached a boiling point, and the world is watching with bated breath. Chinese Coast Guard ships ram a Philippine supply vessel. Water cannons are fired without warning. Filipino sailors are left injured, battered by the force of the attack, as chaos erupts on the open sea. The United States issues a stern warning to Beijing, cautioning of grave consequences if the violence continues. These aren't just distant headlines, they're the drumbeats of a conflict that could draw in the world's superpowers, threatening to upend the fragile balance of peace. The date is July 16, 2025. The West Philippine Sea is boiling with tension, its waters more dangerous than ever before. What began as a regional dispute has now become one of the world's most dangerous flashpoints, with each incident adding fuel to the fire. Giant Chinese vessels aggressively shoulder smaller Philippine boats, using their size and power to intimidate and dominate. Water cannons shatter windows, injuring Filipino crew delivering basic supplies, food, water, medicine, to isolated outposts. This isn't a declared war, but it looks a lot like one. The line between peace and conflict grows thinner with every encounter. Every Philippine resupply mission to its outpost is now a high-stakes confrontation, with lives and sovereignty hanging in the balance. Beijing claims these waters, defying international law and ignoring global condemnation. Manila refuses to back down, standing firm in defense of its territory and its people. Watching closely, with warships and treaty obligations, is the United States, ready to act if the situation spirals out of control. Each incident brings us closer to a miscalculation. A single mistake could trigger a decades-old defense treaty between the US and the Philippines, pulling both nations into open conflict. That could mean direct military confrontation between two nuclear-armed powers, with consequences that would echo across the globe. The stakes are about more than fish or oil. They're about global peace, economic stability, and the rule of law at sea. Trillions in trade pass through these waters every year. China is using its power to rewrite the map of Asia, hoping the world will accept its sweeping claims and growing influence. The Philippines, much smaller, is the front line of this struggle, holding the line for its own future and for the region. Its fight is a stand for every smaller nation facing a larger, aggressive neighbor, a symbol of resistance and courage. The outcome will send a message. Do rules matter, or does brute force decide the fate of nations? The world holds its breath, waiting for the answer. At the heart of this crisis lies a complex and volatile standoff. It's a dangerous triangle of interests, each side locked in a high-stakes contest for power and influence. On one side stands China, asserting sweeping claims over nearly the entire South China Sea. Claims that overlap with the exclusive economic zones of several countries, including the Philippines. For China, control of these waters is about more than territory. It's about national destiny, economic security, and military strategy. Beijing sees this region as its backyard, determined to push out other influences, especially the United States, which it views as a rival superpower. On the second side is the Philippines. For Manila, this is a direct threat to sovereignty, national pride, and even survival. The West Philippine Sea is rich in fish, vital to local livelihoods, and holds potential energy reserves that could transform the nation's future. Filipino fishermen are being chased away by Chinese vessels, their way of life under constant threat. The Philippine government lacks the military might to confront China directly, but it refuses to surrender its territory or its rights. On the third side stands the United States. Washington insists on freedom of navigation in these critical waters, seeing itself as a protector of international order. Over $3 trillion in trade passes through the South China Sea each year, making it one of the world's most important maritime highways. Any disruption here would trigger a global crisis, sending shockwaves through economies everywhere. The US has a mutual defense treaty with the Philippines, putting American credibility and the risk of direct US-China war squarely on the line. This three-way dynamic is a powder keg. Every action prompts a reaction, fueling a dangerous cycle of escalation and mistrust. If China succeeds here, it could embolden similar moves elsewhere, like Taiwan, raising the stakes even higher. The world is watching closely. Will international law hold, or will raw power and might decide the outcome? The stakes are immense, and the outcome will shape not just the region, but the future of global order for years to come. The next move could change everything, setting the course for peace or for conflict. China isn't waging a conventional war, it's using gray zone warfare. This strategy sits between peace and open war, aiming to achieve goals without triggering a US military response. China deploys its massive Coast Guard and maritime militia to intimidate and overwhelm neighbors, enforcing its claims through coercion, not combat. Swarms of Chinese vessels block Filipino fishermen, harass patrols, and build artificial islands equipped with military assets. It's a slow, creeping invasion, designed to exhaust and demoralize the opposition. The Philippines faces a terrible bind, respond and risk escalation, or do nothing and lose control. China's patient, persistent tactics are changing the world order, one reef at a time. The legal battleground is as crucial as the maritime one. The 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, sets clear rules for maritime zones, rules China has signed, but now ignores. China's 9-line claim covers 90% of the South China Sea, clashing with the EEZs of the Philippines and others. In 2013, the Philippines took China to court. The 2016 Hague Tribunal ruled overwhelmingly in Manila's favor, declaring China's claims baseless. China rejected the ruling, accelerating its island building and patrols. This defiance undermines the international legal system. If powerful countries ignore binding rulings, global governance collapses. The world faces a dangerous precedent. Are legal agreements only valid for the strong? The answer will define international relations in the 21st century. At the center of the latest confrontations is 2nd Thomas Shoal, Ayungin Shoal, home to the BRP Sierra Madre. This World War II-era ship, deliberately grounded by the Philippine Navy in 1999, is now a rusting outpost manned by Filipino Marines. The Sierra Madre is a fragile but powerful symbol of Philippine sovereignty. Its presence blocks China from seizing and militarizing the shoal. Resupplying the Marines is perilous, as Chinese vessels blockade and attack supply boats with water cannons and ramming. Each mission is a dramatic test of wills, broadcast to the world. The fate of the Sierra Madre mirrors the broader conflict, a small nation's desperate stand against a superpower's expansion. The courage of the Marines and the ship's battered hull embody the Philippines' resolve. This struggle over a remote shoal has become a global symbol of resistance. The crisis is rattling all of Southeast Asia. Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia watch anxiously. They too face Chinese coercion in disputed waters. If the Philippines is forced to back down, it sets a chilling precedent for the region. These countries balance economic ties with China against the need to defend their sovereignty. ASEAN, the regional bloc, struggles to unite, hampered by China's influence over some members. Many Southeast Asian nations are quietly strengthening defense ties with the US, Japan, Australia, and India. They see a stronger American presence as a necessary counterweight. Quietly, they hope the Philippines' stand will help preserve a regional order where all nations can coexist peacefully. The West Philippine Sea is a superhighway for global commerce. 1/3 of all maritime trade passes through. Any conflict here would devastate supply chains, spike energy prices, and trigger a global recession. The risk of escalation is real. China's gray zone tactics, ramming, water cannons, could easily cause a fatal accident. If a Filipino is killed, pressure to retaliate would soar, risking a spiral into open conflict. The US-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty means an attack could draw in American forces. A direct US-China war would devastate the global economy and risk nuclear escalation. Diplomats are scrambling to prevent miscalculation. The world cannot afford a war over rocks and reefs. The peace and prosperity of the planet depend on de-escalation. The stakes could not be higher. China's tactics are calculated tools of coercion. Industrial-strength water cannons can injure sailors and cripple ships without firing a shot. Chinese vessels, much larger, ram and block Philippine boats, violating maritime rules and endangering lives. Lasers are used to blind crews. Swarms of militia boats blockade and intimidate. These actions create constant fear and stress, making safe operations impossible. China claims it's law enforcement, but the pattern is clear. This is state-sponsored aggression. By using Coast Guard and militia, China forces the Philippines into a dilemma: respond and risk escalation or yield ground. It's a sophisticated strategy that weaponizes maritime safety rules against those who follow them. The US-Philippines alliance is now stronger than it's been in decades, revitalized by shared interests and a renewed sense of purpose in the face of growing regional challenges. The Mutual Defense Treaty stands as the cornerstone of Manila's defense strategy, now reinforced by expanded joint military exercises and new U.S. access to key Philippine bases, enhancing both nations' readiness and cooperation. This renewed commitment sends a clear signal, deterring Chinese coercion and providing much-needed reassurance to the entire region. The Philippines, with strong U.S. support, is building a wider coalition, strengthening ties with Japan, Australia, and other regional partners to create a united front. European nations are also stepping up, increasing their naval presence and actively challenging China's sweeping maritime claims in the South China Sea. This growing network of like-minded nations is working together to uphold a rules-based international order and ensure freedom of navigation for all. But strength alone isn't enough. The ultimate goal remains a peaceful resolution through open dialogue, negotiation, and respect for international law. This united front is not about starting a war, but about creating the right conditions for meaningful negotiation and lasting peace. The message to Beijing is clear: respect the law or face global consequences. The world is watching closely, and the stakes could not be higher. The next chapter will determine whether might makes right, or if the rule of law and diplomacy will ultimately prevail in this critical region. The future of the region and perhaps the world itself now hangs in the balance, awaiting the choices made by leaders on all sides.